So, greetings, everyone. Warm welcome to all of us here already. Uh, Everyone flowing in, joining us um, as we gather. And as always, really beautiful to feel this community coming together and just the power of it. Community coming together and the power of that, both the gathering for each of us within ourselves and the gathering of a community of practice, of a Sangha coming together. As many of you know, my name is Zohar, and I am offering the sessions this week with the daily meditations, and we find ourselves right in the middle, the heart of the week today. So, pausing for a moment, taking a moment to acknowledge and enjoy and appreciate that, the opportunity to practice, together, and that being in the heart, in the center of this week of practice. As always, um, also extending a warm welcome to those who may be here for the first time. Every time I come in here, there's the sense of yes, we've been going for several years now, and there's people for whom this is a very regular part of the day and of their lives. And there's also um, some of us who may be here for the first time, so a particularly warm welcome to you. And the session today will include some reflections on this week's theme, and particularly the theme of the practice today, and then a guided practice of half an hour, followed by time for questions and responses, which as always have been very, very rich this week. So thank you for everyone who's participated in that through offering questions or reflections on their practice and through listening. And we will be continuing with that today for those who wish. So, yeah, whether it's morning, evening, nighttime, afternoon, wherever you find yourself in any time of day, any location on this precious earth that we share, we bring a sense of welcoming ourselves into the space and of settling together into this space. And today I'd like to explore through reflection and through the practice in particular, a very specific way of looking that we can bring in, which is very core to the teachings. So we've been speaking about, when there's an experience, there's something in attention, an object in attention, and there's a way of relating to that object. There's a way of seeing it, there's a way of meeting it, and there's a way of engaging with it, you can say. And both of those, what we pay attention to, where our attention goes, and how we pay attention, very, very key to whether our experience is then shaped towards well-being or ill-being. And it doesn't mean that we can kind of play a game with our minds and only have what we consider happy experiences or pleasant experiences. What it means is that how we relate to the experience then contributes very significantly, or where we place our attention contributes very, very considerably to what it becomes. And so there can be the possibility to meet also the unpleasant aspects of our life as human beings. We are susceptible to those. They will happen to us. Our tea will get cold, or, some much more serious things will happen that are not in our control. And they will be unpleasant, and they will maybe painful and hard to bear. But how we relate to that then makes a big difference. And so, in a way, the practice I'm going to suggest today is going to do both. Sorry. It's going to both um, be something we pay attention to. So, what we actually look at, yeah, the object in our attention in a way. It's also how, it's also going to be a way of looking, a way of relating to what we are looking at. Yeah? So, we're going to play um, with opening to the inconstant nature of our experience. And we can say, so it both becomes to a degree the anchor, the object of attention, because I'm looking for, yeah, at impermanence. Yeah, so that can be one way, inconstancy, that we can see it, or yeah, we can also see it as a way of looking, which is kind of how primarily I will be guiding a practice, where we see that which is arising um, in experience through a lens of inconstancy. Yeah? Changing, inconstant. Yeah. Sometimes we say barely here at all, but it's not just that it will pass, it is also that it changes within itself. It's not fixed in the way that our attention tends to fix and fixate it. So we'll very much be doing that with the anchors that we've already been using for our practice. Yeah, meditation anchors. That might be the breath, the sounds, the body, and just bringing that sense of this actually right here with this breath. There's inconstancy and there's change. Yeah, we can see it right here as you're looking at me or listening to me. Yeah, if you're doing that, you can see inconstancy before your eyes, but it's tuning in to that frequency. You might notice that you know, maybe my background looks different because I didn't tidy up this morning. There's some shopping baskets in the background that weren't there yesterday. Yeah. So that's a kind of a gross form of change, but you might just see how my voice, yeah, changes as I speak, my expression changes as I speak, there's movement, all of that, is changing. Yeah? It's not just this, you know, person, yeah, speaking, but actually there's constant change, and we might also see the internal change. As we listen, we're more present, we're less present. There's change right there in the experience. So it can be really interesting to look through this way, very, very gently, and to experience, yeah, to kind of ponder what it opens up, what, what it, what it opens up. Sometimes we can have fear, that if I open to the inconstancy of things, yeah, then um, that's going to be overwhelming. Say the inconstancy of the body, which is something that in the teachings we're encouraged to contemplate. It's like, no, I don't want that. I don't want to count how many white hairs I have. But actually, let's notice when I open to that inconstancy, when I open to that change, and to the looking at things as impermanent, as changing, brings a lot of release, brings a lot of freedom. And a lot of enlivening rather than overwhelm a lot of the time. And of course, we have to be skillful. We cultivate this way of looking, this way of relating through working with relatively simple things, like the anchors of our attention in our meditation practice, the sounds, the breath, the body, and not the most difficult. And so, there's that kind of sense we're going to weave all the practices together that we've explored so far. Yeah, we're going to weave in just that acknowledgement. It's like this now. There's a breath here. Well, present. There's soundscape. There's hearing here. Like this now. And we're bringing curiosity and gentleness to that meeting. with that anchor of attention. And then we're opening up to see it, I'm constant, I'm constant. And I'll just offer two ways of doing this practice. One is using this kind of very light noting, like I've just done, or just a very light note, inconstant, as I um, explore the body, the breath, the sounds, the anchor of attention. Um, and we might expand that through the practice. We'll see what happens when I start guiding it. So that can one way can just be the noting. The other can be with the attention flowing on from the gentle curiosity from yesterday. We're bringing that gentle curiosity to notice, how does this change? Yeah. Mm. How does this change? And just noticing the changing happening. Really helpful to see these as verbs. Changing is happening, and constancy is happening. Gently exploring that. And this can be, a real resource for us in meeting um, our own, yeah, practice, in meeting um, the world, that we share. So I'll just kind of give an example of that, of, the mentioned before, many of you know, I'm in Israel and Palestine at the moment, and going to a lot of protests this week in particular, with seemingly the breakdown of the negotiations yet again, and protests happening every evening, calling on the government to end the war, not to attack Rafah in southern Gaza, to bring the hostages home, um, and for a ceasefire, and kind of in being in those protests with this lens of change. We kind of think, it can be such a heartbreaking time, and standing in the protests with families of hostages, and what they've been through for 7 months, and having in heart and mind, Palestinian friends, the people of Gaza, everybody that's impacted. And then just this lens of inconstancy, yeah, and bringing it to the moment, just this sense of like wanting to fix as in fixate, also wanting to solve. And just right now, seeing the change, seeing the inconstancy in this gathering, the people coming and going, the kind of, the voices raised and chanting and singing, and then that ebbing away. The police, as they engage, seeing them also in their humanity, as they smile at someone, as they reach out, as they then have their more fierce and sometimes aggressive and unhelpful sides, but seeing that, all of that within that lens. And that supports something that is very beautiful and very resourcing. And I hope I can get that across. Very resourcing, to see that. And maybe I'll just, no, I'll keep that to the end. I'll kind of say something more from the protest last night, um, after the meditation, as I speak a little bit more about how to bring this into our lives. So remembering two ways, even if I don't mention them in the guidance, that we can use this way of looking, of seeing inconstancy. One is that light touch noting. If you're more verbal, if that helps you, the verbal cue, then use that as you explore, as you look at the breath or at sounds. And just that reminder, this is inconstant, this is changing. This is fluid, it's not fixed. And the other way, and they can come together, of course, is with a sense of presence and curiosity and interest, looking at moment to moment change. Now that opens up also possibilities for us. Yeah. So let's practice. If you're not already in a supportive posture for meditation, then Find it, please. Yeah. Notice what's happening in the body. See what an appropriate and supportive posture will be. And then whether you're in the process of settling into your meditation posture or you've been in it for a while, taking time to attune, make any changes that may be supportive so that the body's as balanced as possible between uprightness, energy, and degree of ease and relaxation in the body, finding that balance. Tuning in to the sense of the body being supported. Supported by the seat, by the mat, by the floor. The body supported by the base of the body. Settling more fully into the body, feeling the sensations of contact between the body and that which supports it, if that's helpful for you. The way of grounding, collecting, centering the awareness in the body. And from that groundedness, that centeredness, opening out the awareness through the body, allowing it to expand and fill the whole space of the body. A sense of a whole body, the whole body here. So awareness is wide and open through the whole body. We're going to open the awareness to the presence of sounds, keeping the awareness wide through the whole body, receiving sounds as they are known in awareness. So we might notice a sound appearing, being met in awareness and changing, perhaps disappearing, or just having a degree of fluidity and constancy change within it as it continues. Opening to the soundscape, not trying to catch all the sounds, one side, one sound at a time, or one group of sounds at a time. Not needing to define or identify what the sound is. Very much staying at that contact of hearing. Sounds appearing and changing within themselves and of themselves. Perhaps disappearing and other sounds arising. Perhaps lingering but still changing within themselves. Keeping the awareness wide open to the soundscape, receiving the sounds with acknowledgement as what's present, gentle curiosity, and with a particular interest to see the sounds as inconstant and changing. Or we can say to see the inconstancy within the sounds. We're staying wide and expansive as we do this. We're not trying too hard to find inconstancy. Opening the field and inviting it as a way of looking, that way of looking that sees the inconstant, sees as inconstant. If it's helpful, using a light noting here. As you open to the sounds, as you feel, experience, are present with the sounds, moving through awareness, being known, dropping in, that reminder, changing, inconstant. Some people like to use the Pali word, anicca, anicca, for the noting. Only use it if it's helpful, supports the mind to stay present. Some of us, it may be more helpful or a combination with just being present and interested, gently curious to see the fluctuations, to see the movements of change, of inconstancy. But a sound and a hearing of a sound are also a process, a happening. And that there is change within them moment by moment. So let's practice for some time in silence, exploring this for yourself. Inconstant, changing. Opening to notice what you notice right here in this moment, acknowledging it's like this now. And right here in this moment, with gentle curiosity, seeing experience changing as changing and changing. And the mindfulness of a few moments ago gone, or the distractedness of a few moments ago gone, or some variation along that range, changing, inconstant, fluid. We can keep bringing attention to the sound as an anchor, or you can add the body, the breath. And if sound is not a particularly helpful anchor, you can shift to breath or body. Continuing with this way of looking and relating, seeing the body, the breath, the soundscape, seeing the change, seeing the inconstancy, looking through that lens, then constant, changing, not fixed. As the sound moves through awareness, it changes. As the breath moves through the body, constantly changing, constantly inconstant. Can we see the detail of it? Can we see with that way of relating to it? And can we notice what happens when we look in this way? What happens to the degree of spaciousness, of easefulness, of energy? How does this way of relating impact experience? Presence and distraction also inconstant, lovingly held in awareness, over and over, again and again, with the sound, with the breath, with the body, inconstant, changing. Let's continue to explore this in silence. Continuing to embody and explore this inconstant way of seeing inconstancy, relating through that understanding. With sounds, with breath, with body, a constant flow and movement of change flowing through awareness. That light touch, seeing the body sensations, the sounds, inconstant, changing, ephemeral. And if the practice is flowing, if there's a relatively steady momentum there, possible to include thoughts, perhaps emotions, if they arise. Not getting caught up in narratives and stories, but seeing them also as inconstant, as changing, as arising, passing, ephemeral, barely here at all. All of this whole field of human experience, through the senses, all of it ephemeral, inconstant, and changing. Keeping that in awareness, this way of looking, even as in a few moments the bell will ring and we may move the body or open the eyes hearing the sound of the bell, experiencing the movement of the body, the visual impact. That too is inconstant. That too is changing. That too is barely here at all. So taking your time, not rushing, and I'd like to offer some reflections on dana as we transition, as we move from one form of meditation to another, as we experience this change, this inconstancy of our changing experience moment by moment. The dana practice, we can bring that lens of change and inconstancy to that as well. Maybe we've heard many talks, maybe we know how we do this practice. I give this much at this point in the week or whatever. Can we open and see the change as we appreciate the offering of these sessions from Sangha Live, all the costs that they have in order to make this possible to all of us, freely offered, and for the teaching. Yeah. Whatever you offer this week, remembering, shared between Sangha Live and myself, and gratefully received. So the link is in the chat there for the dana, and if you go through, you will receive all the information. And as we started working with sound here for me, one of the neighbors must be having some work done. There was a lot of drilling. I hope that it didn't come through with a noise kind of cancellation that I have on my computer. It shouldn't have. If it did, I'm sorry, but not in my control. Still worth apologizing for. And let's see if there's any questions or reflections on the practice. You can, as always, put them into the chat. If you can, at the beginning, put in capitals the word question, reflection, whatever you wish to say there. And that allows me to prioritize them as they come through. And I do want to say, as we're waiting, so please, if you have a question, feel free to start writing it. It can come in the chat already. Just to kind of how much we can bring this into our lives, into our moment-to-moment experience, but also with bigger things, with smaller things, with everything. So we train on the small weights, but we can also really bring this in. So it can be a very fruitful practice to see change. We see it, in the weather. We see it in the seasons. If you're in the part of the planet where it's springtime now, you really see it at spring. Things are growing, they're changing, they're flowering, they're fruiting. Equally, if it's a different time of year, the autumn, things are going into hibernation, the leaves are falling, the color is coming out. We can start to see that change, that inconstancy in the world. And then we use that, and this is kind of what we're doing in the practice, seeing it in the world, seeing it in ourselves. I sometimes look in the mirror and just see, the wrinkles, the hair going white, the body changing shape as one gets older. It's just an example, or even when you're doing simple things like cutting your nails, it's all a change. We see it in the world, we see it outside of us, and then we can also bring it into how we're relating to things and seeing them. There's this strong emotion, or there's this pain in the body. Seeing it as inconstant, bringing in that way of looking, both of just relating to it in that way, and in kind of shifting our gaze from the thingness of the thing, of this pain or this emotion, which is maybe difficult to be with, to the detail, to the changing, to the movement within it, which can bring so much relief and so much possibility. Yeah, because it opens up our capacity to respond. So I see there's a reflection, and thank you for that, Caroline. So just to kind of finish this off, really noticing when we see this way, what it opens up and allows, and a lot of it is a less personal kind of relationship to our experience. It's not so much about me. It's not so much mine. Um, so a lot of spaciousness, ease, and that brings well-being. Yeah. So a reflection from Caroline, yeah, really valuing, practicing, noticing how everything changes in our inner experience and how that can be related to every part of life, seasons, politics, and all aspects of life. Um, and noticing some grey hairs. I don't know if it's with me or with you, Caroline, where the grey hairs are, but yeah, definitely with me. I'm showing them to you. My mother's cleaner said to me the other day, "Don't you want to dye your hair?" And that was quite a thing, and I was like, "Why would I?" That was my response, what why would I? But anyway, so yeah, seeing that and seeing how it relates, and I think, if we think about things that are painful and difficult for us, often one of the things that solidifies there is the sense of this is either, fixed, it's here and it's here to stay and it's just one thing, or that it's going to get worse. Yeah, the trajectory um, is fixed. Yeah, and so um, yeah, so we can just notice how that the mind fixates, and then we can bring this way of relating in and see the fluctuations and the changes. And a lot of this is about the resolution that we're looking at. Of course, we didn't have time to explore all the ways of practicing with this. Um, and the resolution that we're noticing. So I see Kevin wrote there, tinnitus does not appear to be inconstant. What resolution are you looking at? Yeah, really looking through, very interesting, because it's sometimes, if you're not paying attention to it, is it inconstant? Not in the sense that it's not there. Inconstancy doesn't mean something isn't there. It means it's not constant, as it's not constantly the same. So potentially, I don't have tinnitus, so I'm not going to say that I know that experience, but with different experiences that we can have a sense of. When we're asleep, is it there? When we're not paying attention to it, is it there? Not in the sense that it doesn't exist, but that constant inconstancy and that changeability. And at some point, it probably wasn't there in the past. Yeah. So we can also see that. So there's that possibility to look, and this light weights to work on the heaviest weights. Yeah. So if practicing a particular way brings the tinnitus to the forefront, um, then practice in a different way. See if you can work with it differently. And this may not be the way of looking that's helpful, and that's fine. But remembering that resolution, yeah, like how am I looking, and what am I looking for and at, and if I'm looking for it to stop, and that can be like part of what is creating the dukkha in the experience. Then, so it can be very, very interesting, and this very much held with the gentleness of yesterday, and the compassion, with things that are more difficult, more hard to bear. That has to be part of what we bring. So also how we relate to our experiences in constant. Yeah, we're not always doing the same thing. You know? So yes, there's another. Thanks for that, Kevin. That's always really helpful to bring in these examples. Um, I find it difficult when hearing a voice telling me to pay attention to sound when using sound to understand meaning. It seems to me that we're being asked to simultaneously experience sound in two different ways. Any comments? Just going to pause there to see I understand. Okay, I understand. Sorry, a bit slow this morning. Yes, it's difficult if you're opening to sound as the anchor. It's then also difficult to stay in touch with a particular sound and still want to follow what it's telling us to do, the guidance. Yeah, really beautiful, beautiful, beautiful reflection. And one thing I would say, it sounds like potentially sound is quite a helpful, strong anchor for you. If like you're very easily going off into more just the kind of the contact with the sound rather than the content. Um, and so it'd be interesting. One thing I would suggest is if that is the case for you, um, maybe with sound meditations, practice just let go of the sound of whoever's guiding as you're practicing. Go with that, work with the sound in whatever way is applicable for you. Then afterwards, listen to the recording when you're not doing that kind of meditation and take some notes for yourself of, what was the guidance? What would have been helpful there? I know it feels like you're not getting the best experience, but you are actually, because that sense of just being with the sound and just noticing the sounds as sounds and not getting pulled into the content of them is probably a pretty beautiful experience. And if it is, then go with that and listen to the guidance at another time when you're not actually meditating, or when you're meditating on something that's not sound, but actually breath or body, which you can also do. Really hoping you're not hearing that drilling. It's pretty bad and very inconstant within itself, and also with gaps of minutes in between. And okay, there's a reflection from Kaz. I really appreciated being held to the moment-to-moment awareness of inconstancy and anicca. I really noticed how my appreciation of any experience was intensified. Beautiful. So sometimes that can really, really open up. We just like in that noticing, this is not permanent. This is changing and constant. And especially with the more neutral things that don't have a weight for us, like a constant pain or a constant sound like tinnitus, then that opens up a lot of appreciation, sometimes joy, sometimes delight. Beautiful, yeah. And Kaz is writing there over any experience, yeah, when we notice that. And it's very interesting, that movement from the focusing and the fixating, on the particular thing, to that movement to how we're relating to it, which this practice of seeing inconstancy really does. Yeah? So we've shifted, we're not so invested, our attention is not so invested in the thing. And that's a really beautiful kind of way of seeing what can happen to us through practice. Okay, a few more beautiful reflections, I'm sure. I feel centered as I observe the inconstancy of my mind, a paradoxical experience which has left me at peace. Yes. Yeah. And again, the power of this practice, when we're not kind of hooked in to the content of the thing, whether that's our thought, our mind, we're not at struggle with it. We're just seeing it as inconstant. What happens there? Yeah, peacefulness. Yeah, can appear even with an agitated mind. Yeah, this is the power of these teachings and these practices. Yeah, very powerful way of describing that, Nicola. And Monica. I also have tinnitus, which I only begin to notice in meditation when it is suggested to focus on sounds. Okay, really wise to notice that. Don't focus on sounds. Yeah, don't. Yeah, it's interesting. I almost said that, and I apologize to all those with tinnitus that I didn't. Just like when we give the breath as an anchor, and we say use sound, if the breath is not a suitable anchor for you, the same thing. If I suggest sound, please feel free to use breath or body or any other anchor that's helpful for you, and adapt the practice to that. So yes, yeah, it can just the opening to that particular sense door can bring up what's there in the sense doors. So yeah, just look for that and feel really invited and free to do what works well for you, rather than what doesn't. Okay, so we're almost at time. I see there's another question there, and I will respond to it. But if you need to go, as we've reached our time, then wish you well, go well, and I will hopefully see you tomorrow. holding it all as inconstant, including the internet. Guys, what a lesson it is when it's an intermittent and it has these gaps. Um, Seeing the inconstancy and appreciating all that there is with that. Um, so Caroline was reminding me that I was going to say something else about the protests here, and you're interested to hear that. Yeah, I wonder what I was going to say. I also remember I said that, and I didn't want to go into the meditation time too much. I think something that was striking me yesterday in the protest was there were uh, like the range of ages, which you see here anyway, but usually in the protests with the hostage families, because of the content being quite intense, there's not so many children. And yesterday there were, and there were some quite young children, um, and they were making their own signs. So they spent the first part creating their own signs. And there was something about that layer of inconstancy, both seeing the different ages and then them holding up their signs with, like, the kind of spelling that a 7 or 8-year-old might have. Uh, it was just very moving, to see, like, and again, we can say something like love or care for the world. It's also inconstant, right? It's not all the time the same. Uh, but yet there's something about witnessing that with these really young beings, and also seeing the sense of how important it is to stand up for what matters, because we may not be here for much longer, but they are. And we want, with that sense of inconstancy and change, wanting to act in ways that support a better world for all the children of this planet. And so, with that, wishing safety and peace for all children, and for all parents, and for all grandparents, for all those um, who are childless, for all the beings of this world, and for those to yet to come. May we create a world of safety and of peace for all. And thank you, everyone, and go well.